Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Nicole Magistro. She's here to celebrate her beautiful book. It's called Reed Island. Before we invite Nicole in to join us virtually in our Reedville studios to tell us all about Reed Island, we want to invite you to join us on social media. We love talking and communicating with our listeners out on social media. Facebook.com/Reading with Your Kids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram. We have a great Reading with Your Kids page on Pinterest. And if you want to connect with us on Twitter, it's at Jedley Magic. And of course, you can go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can sign up for our free newsletter, and you can always click the contact button to let us know who we should have on the show, what your favorite episodes are, how we can make the podcast better, or if you just want to say hi, you can do that too. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Colorado. Our guest is here today to celebrate her beautiful children's book. Is called Reed Island. Please welcome to the show, Nicole Magistro. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Jen.
I'm excited to have you here, and I am speaking to you from Reedville, so I'm really excited to learn all about Reed Island.
Isn't it great that we have place names all around the world that celebrate literacy and books? Probably our two favorite things.
Absolutely. And I wonder if a couple hundred years ago, if the folks who were naming these places had that in mind.
You know, I wonder too. I think about how places got named, whether it was from a geological site or because of a certain historical event or a famous person. And, Reed Island is a real place in Canada, in coastal British Columbia. And it's a very special place for me and my family. We've been going there for 25 years. But when it sort of occurred to me that it was so special and the animals and the people there were so amazing, I wanted to start to think about how I could tie in a real place, Reed Island, with the things that I love the most, books and reading.
Yeah, so neat. So tell us the story that we're going to experience when we read Reed Island.
Well, Reed Island is the story of a brave little girl who gets on a sailboat early in the morning when the sun is coming up with her friends, the fox and mouse. And she sets sail for a magical island made of books. And they want to get there just in time for story time. Along the way, they meet some amazing creatures, all who live in the real place of coastal Canada and British Columbia. But these animals love to read. So there's a moose, there's an elk, there's even a spirit bear. There's a humpback whale and many other characters that they join up for story time. It's really kind of an affirmation about the joy of reading and the fact that books can take us anywhere every time we read.
That is something that is so important. And I think it's something that as parents, if we can help our kids understand that books are actually like a magic transport machine that can take us back into the past, can take us to places all around the world that can help us imagine what the future is going to be like. That's actually a beautiful gift that we're giving to our kids.
It is. Imagination is a powerful tool for so many different things. And reading helps sort of prompt us, right? So when we read a book, we can really literally go there. If the writer's done a good job of describing the place or in the pictures, showing the place. And it's also something where we can go to places that aren't real at all, but instead that are only in our hearts and then in our minds. And, I think especially during COVID, this was a really important tool in our family. And one of the things that inspired the book, I have a son who's 10 years old now. And during the pandemic, we were meditating a lot together to imagine our favorite places, to think about places we could go, even if it was just in our imagination. And one morning, I kind of nudged my son and I said, Silas, where do you go? And he said, well, I go to Reed Island, Mom. And I said, I do too. And it was a perfect expression of that thing, right? That we can just go anywhere we want, even when we physically have to stay in our homes or where we live in our community. And for those kids who can't travel ever, that's also an amazing opportunity to find new worlds through books.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the idea of not only reading together, but meditating together. That's, I'll be honest, when my son was 10, if I had thought, boy, we're going to sit down and meditate, as a family for 10 or 15 minutes, I don't know if my son, who had lots of extra energy and I had a little patience, if we would have been able to have done that. How did you accomplish it? Was it something just because you've been doing it forever that your son was, I'm all on board with this?
No, it was a teacher who inspired us. Silas's second grade teacher used a tool in her classroom for social emotional learning called the Zenimal. And it's a little screen-free device that has 9 different meditations that are inspired by real life and things that kids can attach to. And it's also very short. And so to your point, all the extra energy, this is a great tool that his second grade teacher used in the classroom. And Silas actually came home to me and said, Mom, I want to do that at home. And we began using it as a sleep tool in the evenings to sort of calm down and relax our bodies and get ready for sleep. And then we started using it and the other prompts for different reasons, like creativity, like empathy, and it just became a regular practice. And I was so happy to have that tool during COVID when I became the teacher at home and was not very good at it.
Hey, if you don't mind, I'd just like to explore a little bit. Now, you mentioned that Silas is 10 years old. And we are right now, we're speaking, it's start of the fall of 2021. At this point, it's a little scary to think about this, but at this point, Silas has experienced some sort of lockdown or restrictions for close to 15% of his entire life. How do you think that's impacted? I can't imagine spending a 10th of my life locked down. How has Silas dealt with that, and how did you as a parent cope with that?
Well, I'm not going to lie. It has been really hard. However, where we live, we have been very fortunate to be in school because, our school system really worked through how to do school safely. And it is a rural place. We have beautiful outdoors. So every day going outside is a super important part of our life. And I think that also has sort of transcended into other things that we do. We spend even more time outside than we used to. But also, books and reading have become central to our lives in a new way because Silas can read now and he is able to read chapter books and enjoy stories and pick them out himself. And so I think during lockdown, that was one of the benefits really was to celebrate the books that we had and share those stories. It has been, there's no doubt, it's just been hard on kids, and we are doing everything we can for our child, but for all the kids in our community to find ways to make sure that they're safe and that they understand how many things they can do, even if we do have restrictions in our lives.
Yeah. Do you think that this is something, I know a lot of people, it's like, oh, I can't wait till this is over. As if there's going to be, someone's going to flip a switch and it's going to be over. But I don't know. My kids are old. My kids are 29 and 25 right now. I don't know if that's going to happen. I have a feeling that this is going to take a long time, especially for kids Silas's age and younger, to kind of process.
Yeah, there's no doubt, right? I mean, we are all still processing things that happened in our childhood that might have only occurred over a shorter time than a couple of years. So there's no doubt about that. But I will say, children are so wise. And recently Silas said to me, he didn't really even say it to me. He kind of said it in passing to someone else, like, I think masks are going to be around for a long time, Mom. And yeah, I think you're right, buddy. They're so wise and observant. And so I think if we can give them tools like meditation and reading and nature to sort of cope with those things in a healthy way, that perhaps, they'll look back on this time with, positives and negatives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not just negative.
And I think that, when we get into the habit of reading with our kids, even with our kids who are able to read and pick out their own books, it's just a wonderful time to help our kids slow down, to relax, and just talk and give them a moment to feel safe. Because I don't know, I don't think that there is any safer feeling than when we're snuggled up next to somebody that we love and we're going on a journey to a place like Reed Island together.
That's right. And actually, that's one of the main reasons that I felt I wanted to write a certain style of book. I wanted to write a rhyming narrative that parents could sort of internalize and bring up from time to time. I wanted to write a book that, adults would feel comfortable reading over and over and over in that sort of snuggle time. I wanted for kids to go to the shelf and say, again, Mom, read it again. And because those are the books that I loved the most. I still have memorized many children's books that we read during a lap session, just like you describe. And I think that I feel as positively and warmly about those memories as my son. I owned an independent bookstore for 15 years. And I will say that during story time, it was a magical experience to observe a story time reader really taking complete control of a room of toddlers, babies, as they sat on their caregivers' laps and read stories together. And of course, there was lots of exuberance and song and sort of that, energy that fills the whole bookstore. But there's a magic in that moment of care and quiet and storytelling.
Yeah. I'd love to get your ideas and experiences as an independent bookstore owner. You're kind of like a unicorn. We've always heard that there were these things called bookstores, brick and mortar bookstores that existed, but for a lot of people, they're no more. What was it like owning a bookstore for that long?
It was amazing. I loved it. I still love the independent bookstore. That my office is next door to the independent bookstore. And I think that it does feel in some ways like a unique place. You step in to another type of magical place made of books, right? And I loved providing that for the community. There's so much immediate gratification in connecting the right book with the right person at the right time. And that's what independent booksellers do so well. And, I think there's lots of challenges to it, certainly. And we talk about that, how hard it is to compete with online and every other place that sells books. But that feeling, again, it's sort of, you can't recreate that anywhere else. And the connection that you make with other humans who love the same books as you there's no stronger expression of that than independent bookstores. So it was an amazing place. It also has taught me so much about how to be an author who can also appreciate the job, right? The retail job of independent bookselling, and to be respectful of that, and to contribute in a way that is helpful and exciting for, authors and bookstores to kind of collaborate in.
Yeah. I want to get back to your book, Read Island. You were telling us at the beginning of our chat that, the story is about this brave little girl. How do you think that reading with our kids can help kids find that courage that they may not believe that they have?
Well, I certainly did not think as a kid that I had much courage. I was pretty nervous and I was easy to cry and sensitive. And what I learned is that there's a whole world in books that you can sort of try different things on in your mind, and you can see how other characters deal with things in their lives. And so in this case, again, it's a rhyming picture book. It's meant to sort of show, kids that they can go anywhere, and yet not beat them over the head with any sort of like, you have to go across the sea or you have to be an amazing reader. But again, just the celebration and upbeat sort of nature that I think, if kids can find that in their childhood, then they can take that with them into other places, and that will build their confidence. And, those early literacy skills are part of building confidence.
I never thought of that, but yeah, in addition to, learning empathy and learning vocabulary, I guess when our kids are starting to learn how to read, which when you think about it, when you first are approaching the idea of reading, of taking these little symbols and understanding that each symbol makes a sound and that there are rules, but it's in English, so it doesn't always follow the rules. And then we can somehow decipher this code and discover a story and step into somebody else's mind and allow somebody who is not next to us and maybe not be living anymore to talk to us and tell us a story. That must, when we achieve that and we start learning how to read, that must give kids a tremendous sense of confidence.
Yeah. And I think to your point about vocabulary, we know that the more vocabulary words children are exposed to at an early age, studies show that improves literacy skills. We know that books in the home, regardless of if they're read even or not, help kids start to see more words, more letters, more expressions, no matter the language. And that again helps build lifelong literacy skills. The other thing that I think is really special in Read Island is the illustrations, which actually take the text from classic children's stories and layer them as colors and patterns and textures into the illustration. So children can actually see even more words within the illustration. And again, exposing them to those symbols and those expressions and images from classic books to start to make them familiar. So you'll see, text and illustration from lots of public domain stories like Alice in Wonderland, Jack and the Beanstalk, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but even the Odyssey is in Read Island illustrations, and Alice Fagan is the illustrator, and she just did a masterful job of finding ways to include those nursery rhymes, maps, stories, and books.
Yeah, so good. And I have to tip my hat to you acknowledging your illustrator. I think it's really important for us to remember that as children, we have a lot of authors who listen to the show as authors of a book. We're actually part of a team. That every good children's book is, it's the author's idea that grows into a book, but it only grows with the help of an illustrator, with the help of an editor and a designer. And even if you're able to do some of those things on your own, you still need other people in your team.
Oh my gosh. I have worked with true pros and I have learned so much. As a debut author, I really looked to Alice and my editors, Sandy Ferguson Fuller and Bethany Strout, for their expertise, for our designer, Sasha Illingworth, for our printer, for my publicist. Everyone along the way has contributed so much and helped me learn. And I think that, again, going back to that sort of relationship between authors and booksellers, there's also so many relationships behind the scenes that make a book amazing. And I would never have this physical book out ready to go to the world if it weren't for those other amazing women. So I am very fortunate to have worked and learned from so many. And I still have so much more learning to do. It's exciting.
Yeah. And as we were speaking, as I was listening to you, celebrate the other people on your team, I'm thinking that can be a great conversation to have with our kids as we're reading a book, in addition to taking a picture walk through the book and thinking about what this pictures might be telling us and talking about the different vocabulary, helping our kids understand that, yeah, this is a book. Nicole wrote the book. She's the author, but there are a lot of people behind Nicole that helped us. And just this is a great way to remind our kids that they don't need to approach problems by themselves, that there are a lot of people out there that we can turn to that will help us achieve our dreams.
Absolutely. And asking for help is a really great, starting point for that. I think there's a wonderful movement in children's picture books to develop a sort of about the book paragraph or acknowledgement within the book itself. And I think that's so important for our industry, but also for kids to see what happens, when we do school visits or author events and we are able to present, different information. Alice and I, for example, are working on that right now, how we show both parts of being an author and an illustrator, and then talking to kids about all the jobs that are available around the book world. I know some, kid who loved writing and thought she wanted to be a writer when she grew up. I didn't know anything about the publishing business or the book world. So to learn about some of those careers is a real door opener for a lot of kids.
Yeah. And helping our kids understand that it is not only okay to ask for help, but it's the right thing to do. That's really, really important.
Absolutely. And, I think even in this storytime setting of Reed Island, when all the characters get together, it's a sort of unlikely character who's actually the storytime reader. And I think it's Seawolf. And we oftentimes think of Wolf as sort of a lone character, right? But in fact, in Reed Island, we can show that even when we think someone should act alone, in fact, they can welcome us in, they can beckon and call us in to sit together and read, and that we can come to that, right? And we're open. So I think that collaboration is essential for me in my work, and I think for a lot of characters in kids' books.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author of Reed Island, the debut picture book from our guest, Nicole Magistro. Hey, Nicole, where can people go to find out more about you and find out more about Reed Island?
They can find out more on our website. It's myreedisland.com. And of course, the book will be available at independent bookstores and wherever books are sold.
Yeah. And just another plug. I love the fact that Amazon was there during the pandemic. I needed dog food and there was none in the supermarket and they were able to get it to me. And that's fantastic. But they have enough of my money right now. So I am a big proponent of finding an indie bookstore and giving them a call and saying, hey, do you have Reed Island on the shelf by Nicole Magistro? If they say no, then just ask nicely, can you get it for me? I bet you they'll say yes.
Absolutely. That's right. Thank you so much, Jedley. It was awesome to talk to you.
Thank you, Nicole. Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Stephanie Lucianovic. She'll be here to celebrate Hello Star, a really, really fascinating book that talks to us about this little girl and empathy and science. It's really cool. You don't want to miss it. If you're the author of a fantastic children's book, you may be frustrated at how hard it is to let your world know about your book. I mean, if folks don't know about your book, there's no way they can add it to their family library. We have a bunch of ways that we can help you let the world know about your fabulous book. Of course, you can be a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your book, and it doesn't cost a thing. You can also check out our Certified Great Read program. If our panel of parents, teachers, and kids believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read. And with that status comes a number of tools that can really help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. Did you know when you started to write your book that there are literally thousands of books published every single month? Yeah, it's really hard. We want to help you. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page and scroll on down to the service you're interested in. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Nicole Magistro. I want to thank her for introducing us to her beautiful Reed Island children's book. I also want to thank her for introducing us to the real Reed Island out there in British Columbia, right off the coast of British Columbia in Canada. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Michael Murphy. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.